We don't talk much about adoption. Why would we if we haven't been impacted by it? But some of the most beautiful family adoption stories are rarely told. They're couched in mystery and misunderstanding. These stories are not celebrated in the media like they could be and should be. Instead, I would hear of mothers giving up their child, or of someone looking to adopt only to be unable to navigate the bureaucracy of foster care and red tape. Even more difficult to understand, for many, is the idea of open adoption. That a mother would actively find her infant a forever family and still be in the life of that family. And that the family would not only maintain a relationship with the birth mother and their child, but embrace and cheer her on. And so I wondered, why don't we talk more about adoption? Why don't traditional families like mine know more about it? If adoption does have a negative stigma, isn't it time we reshaped that narrative? Shouldn't we celebrate the forever families and stories of togetherness? I wanted to dig into this issue, to hear it from every angle, to hear the joy, the pain, the love, the heartbreak, the laughter, the tears, and to meet those who are living these remarkable adoption stories today. As I heard the stories of open adoption, I began to change, and deeply. This is not odd, strange, or taboo. This is brave, beautiful, authentic, and perhaps the most beautiful picture of love I've ever seen. This is the story of those who said, "I'll see you later." This is the story of adoption.
I think it's like
They're dangerous. Like you could just eat.
miss. A lot of lentils and stuff like that.
Seemed really healthy because there was a lot of like vegetables and rice and like.
There we go. Yeah.
Cut. You know,
Yeah.
super good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They have the keg ones at Costco too.
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Some
they have the
more.
keg burgers there.
But spice.
Drink
So
that
good,
water.
but spicy.
Water is really healthy.
Water's really
It
healthy.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
They would like play it online.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he like stayed social doing it, so now they're like
No,
so
so
old. It's
Yep.
so funny. Oh my gosh, you scared me, Parker. You're so silly.
Parker, what you doing over there?
Or tacos. Sorry.
Literally has tacos.
She does those doll hands. In all her videos. Yes.
Adoption is the bringing into a family of a child that is not biologically yours, I suppose, and it's the giving of a child, the gift of a child to a family that, for whatever reason, either cannot or chooses adoption as an alternate way of making a family. It's a different way of making a family.
I think that people do not understand the process, the emotions, and the procedures and regulations of adoption practice today. There's so many layers of emotions, and this is really one of the hardest experiences all people involved in the adoption circle can go through, but it can also be one of the most amazing and positive experiences that people can go through as well.
I think adoption has a very negative stigma. I think it's partly because we never talk about it. There is no education about adoption. People are still telling stories about adoption the way it was in the old secret system. And I think that is creating a negative impression.
What's your relationship like with Billy now?
I'll say we have a great relationship with her. Like, I mean, we genuinely love Billy. Like, we just think she's a wonderful person, and We communicate regularly. We see each other. The thing with our relationship is we don't really have like a schedule set out or a certain number of days we're gonna see each other a year or anything like that. You just kind of meet whenever things work out, whenever you want to meet. We just get a hold of each other and like, hey, do you want to come by next weekend? Like that sort of thing. So
it's a really organic relationship that we have with her. It's just it's natural. She's great. I love her to bits. I absolutely love her so much. Even in the beginning when we were hanging out in that first period, it was fun because we just liked each other, right? Like I like her. Yeah. Like she's just great.
She speaks very highly of both.
Oh my gosh, I love Colleen so much. Me and Colleen get along really well. I feel like she said it so many times, but I feel like if Colleen was my age, we'd be best friends. But yeah, me and her get along, and I see like what I want to be when I'm older is she's a role model to me, is basically what I'm saying. She's a huge role model to me.
What kinds of things do you do?
We go out for dinner lots. We'll go for like happy hour or dinner. We've had coffee in the morning before work. Mostly we just sit and chat. We could chat for hours. Slav and Colleen are Parker's adoptive parents. So.
Okay, so Slav and Colleen are, I guess, Parker's mom and dad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you feel when you see Slav and Colleen and Parker together?
I see a family that, I don't know, like, I wish whenever I see Colleen and Slav and Parker together, I see a family that I helped create in a way, and I see a family that I'm so proud of.
Every person involved in adoption comes to it from a loss. And so adoption is a joyful story, but it's also a grief story. And the grief is significant, the grief of the adoptive family who perhaps are struggling with infertility or have lost a child for some reason. The grief of the birth mother and the birth family who are in a situation where they can't or feel that they want more for their child. That's usually the reason. They want more for their child than they can give them right now. And place that child in the arms of another. That's an incredible loss that most people can't even imagine. And then there's the grief of there is grief involved in being an adoptee because there's feelings of rejection. Why didn't my first family keep me? All those questions come up. It's second best really in some ways for everyone, but out of it comes something really beautiful.
I guess I was in my early 30s, like 30, 31, and realizing time is passing. So we'd gone through some fertility drugs, that type of thing, like a lot of people do when they can't have children. And we recognized it didn't work, and it wasn't going to work for us. And I walked into church one day, and there was this young couple. I knew they hadn't been pregnant, but they walked in with this baby, and it's like, ooh, what's happened here? So I congratulated them, and then I went and asked, I said, would you mind telling me your story? And she said, well, we went through the open adoption process. And I said, can I call you later and just get some more information from you? Well, I got the brochures that February, and they sat on the kitchen table until September with the hope that Rick would actually read them. And finally, it came up that his brother and sister-in-law said, hey, we're expecting a baby. And that was it for Rick. Is like he broke down. He said, I think we would really like to have a family. And that's when he thought, well, let's just check out this adoption process. Shortly thereafter, within a month or two, we were in the seminar.
It was just a total unknown area for me. I didn't know what to think of it. I kind of, in my mind, was thinking, because I hadn't researched anything, I thought, well, how does this work? I mean, I had in my mind a picture of the type of person that would actually give a child up. And I thought, so then once they get their life together, they're just going to come get them back? You know, what's that going to do to us? And of course, this is how little I knew of the process. So no, I wasn't excited about it, and I think initially even frightened. You know, we'd already not been able to have a child, and maybe part of it was I didn't want to be disappointed again.
For adoptive parents, there are a lot of there's a lot of fears and a lot of sacrifices. They can't pretend that their family is like any other. Adoption is a different way of making a family, and that's a reality. And the families that embrace that fully and embrace the openness and the gifts that their birth family will bring to them and their child are actually, in my experience, the ones that are most successful.
But, you know, you put your mind on everything else, on work and so on and so forth, so you just blast through the days. But finally spending the time at the seminar for, I believe it was the Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
How did it change you?
What I heard was love. They answered all the questions, all the silly notions that I had. They completely explained those things. So whatever fears I had, realistic or not, those fears were gone.
There's a whole box of goodies. Let's look through that. I remember your mom had shared with me that at the time, like, you were starting to really explore more questions about your adoption story. So I thought that this would be a way of capturing our journey.
How young you look.
Yeah, we got to go to court and celebrate the official legality of it all. You were about 6 months old, as I recall. What a cutie. We would always gather as your birth family and wrap your birthday presents and light a candle on a cake, and I'd make a wish for you. And so this was your first birthday. It was an emotional one, one of the harder ones I think that I experienced along the way. But, you know, lots of joy there too with my sisters and my mom and dad.
It's the first birthday party.
Yeah. With your wispy hair. We loved
Grandma
so much
Brenda.
that you were a girl. We just were like, she's one of us. Because there's so many women in my family.
I love it.
Yeah. Looking back all those years ago, I was somewhat of a rebellious young teenager, experimenting in relationships and friendships that were probably a little bit out of my depth. Fell in adolescent love with a young fellow and got pregnant at the age of 14. And so at that time I was, I think, in a little bit of denial, certainly shock. Wasn't sure what on earth I was going to do with this tremendous information that was certainly going to have life-altering impacts no matter what I decided to do. I would say that I didn't know truly what my options actually were. And I was certainly aware that parenting was a choice that some people made, and I was aware that abortion was an option for me. The logistics of that were certainly out of my frame of reference, but it was those two choices that were most paramount or in front of me. And so after a period of processing and seeking the support of a couple of friends and Asia's birth father, we told my parents. And that, I think, opened up a whole new level of worry and concern, made it certainly real. It was actually quite a ways into my pregnancy before adoption really entered my vision. And it was my mom who did quite a bit of looking around and research and was, I think, fearful around what a parenting option would look like for her very young daughter. She
went to the Yellow Pages, found a wonderful organization called Adoption Options, and asked for a bit of information. And she did that without any pressure or coercion. She just wanted me to make an informed decision. And we were just embraced with the most compassionate, loving support you can imagine. It certainly changed the outcome of my life in all ways for the better. But what I learned was that open adoption was an option. And so one of the reasons in the early part of the pregnancy when I was considering only abortion or only parenting was because I made the assumption, and the misinformed assumption, that adoption worked the way it did 50 years ago, where someone would take my baby and I would never see her again. And that did not feel sufficient. And so I discarded adoption as an option for me. So when we learned about open adoption and how that would allow me some autonomy over that decision, to be able to choose the parents for my child, and to be able to have an ongoing relationship with her as she grew, that felt right. And so it took no time at all for me to completely flip my whole outlook and realize that that was right for her and that was right for me. And as I said, it changed our life.
There is a stigma around pregnancies. Some soon-to-be mothers throw parties, while unwanted pregnancies are left uncelebrated and hidden. But in this divide is a small group of mothers who are finding another way. They're choosing to celebrate their unplanned pregnancy and may courageously plan for that child's future. What I wanted to know is how the love of courageous mothers pushes through this stigma.
So Slav and I, we always knew we've been together for like how many years now?
18 years.
18 years. We've been married for 10. We just had our anniversary. And we always wanted to have kids. It was always something we planned for. And yeah, even when we were younger, we talked about, we're like, oh, we'll have a child of our own and we would then maybe adopt.
You got pregnant, what was going through your mind, how you chose adoption?
So I was 19 when I got pregnant. It was in the summer and I was partying. I had just started serving at Boston Pizza. And so we were kind of in the party cycle and we were partying quite a bit. I found out I was pregnant and I knew I wasn't ready. I was 19 and I was not ready. I was living at home still. The guy that I was pregnant with, he was not a part of my life at all. And so I decided that I wanted to go talk to somebody at an adoption center, and I just happened to come across Adoption Options and I found Erica. When I walked into Adoption Options, I was so scared. I was petrified. I was scared to go through labor. I was scared to go to school, to new works, but that was the most petrified I've ever been in my entire life.
So once we learned about everything, the concept of open adoption, it was very appealing, but at the same time you're hesitant because you are essentially going to be entering into this lifelong relationship with somebody you don't know, right? So you hear open adoption, this woman's going to be a part of your life, but you don't know who this person is. So that there's just a general, you're just going to be nervous about that naturally.
Yeah, I think those thoughts are really normal. So at first you kind of there's some guilt there because you're like, you feel guilty because you don't want to be selfish. But then at the same time, as we kind of went through the process and spoke to other people and spoke to the people at Open Adoptions, I mean, they, told us a lot of the feelings you guys are having, this is perfectly normal. So
first meeting we had, I found their file a week or two before that.
You looked at our profile. We had a phone call saying that Billy would like to meet us. We almost flew off our chairs when we got that phone call.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I felt like I was going into an interview for I was so nervous to go to that meeting.
It was the most nerve-wracking meeting of my entire life where you're just, what does my hair look like? Am I wearing what outfit? I
felt like I was interviewing someone to take care of my child for the rest of their life. If you could ever imagine how that would feel.
Waiting to meet this person who could really impact the rest of your life. I mean, they're going to deter, in some ways, they're going to make a decision whether or not, I mean, that's the way I was looking at it. It was like, this person is going to decide whether I'm going to be a dad and Colleen's going to be a mom ultimately.
She was the first one who selected our profile. It wasn't, no one selected it before that and it fell through. Like, she was the first one.
Or they were in the room first and we walked in, me and my mom, and I looked at them and it was like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, like love at first sight.
We hit it off right away. I think she liked us and we liked her, and it felt so natural. It was strange how natural it felt.
Like, that's what it was like. I just knew. Like, I saw them and I was like, this is it. It sounds really weird, but it sounds corny, but it's so true. That's exactly how it was. It was amazing, yeah. We decided to meet for coffee a week later, and then instead I had him, and we met at the hospital.
Birth moms, depending on the situation, depending on how well supported they are, I think if we're honest, there are some situations where birth mothers have lots of regrets. I think when adoption is open and done well, most of the birth moms I know and work with are incredibly proud of their choice. They're incredibly proud of their children, and they're proud of themselves. And they make something of their lives because that sacrifice has come at such a cost. It has to be, something good has to come from it.
It took about a year before we actually got on the list. There was over 20 hours of a social worker sitting with us doing a home study, so all that information had to be put together. A lot of details, and then you sit and you wait, and wait, and wait. I had been given a lot of baby stuff from my sister-in-laws, etc., in the hope of this child coming, and so I would have some stuff ready to go. When we were moving, I gave all that stuff back to the people who gave it to us because I had said to Rick, it's time for us to move on. I didn't want to carry this with me and have to look at it anymore. I wanted to just move on. And I said, we're going to go to Hawaii next July. We're moving on.
Then what?
It's 5:30 in the evening, and we get this phone call. And it was from Adoption Options. And she just told me her name, and she said, we have a match. And I remember being rather stunned, and I just said, can I put you on hold for a moment? And I'm running around the office looking for Rick, saying, Rick, we got the call. And he looks at me, he said, what are you talking about?
What call?
What call? And he said, did we win the lottery? I said, no, Adoption Options, right? We've been matched with a child.
And truthfully, I had actually just about forgotten the whole process. It had been so long ago, and life moves on. And I think that's a saving thing that we do in our heads.
And then when Catherine was born, we get the phone call at 6:30 in the morning of February 9th.
You spoke about love.
It's all about love.
Yeah.
It's all about love, and that, not only, of course, she was special to us, but her birth mother, who loved her dearly, chose us. There's a choosing in, when you're born naturally, you grow up in that family and you don't know any different. That's what it is. But this lady went a step further and chose someone that she felt could love this child and give them the opportunities in life that maybe she didn't feel she could do it at her age.
Well, I would say the birth mom and the child are of equal importance. And to sacrifice yourself, she is not really sacrificing her child because she's giving her child more than she can give her right now. And I would say most birth moms, most birth parents could have done an excellent job of raising a child because of the emotional maturity it took to actually place that child in a situation where they can have what they need now. It's a matter of timing. Most birth families 5 or 6 or 7 years down the road say, I could have done this. But at the time, the circumstances were such that they couldn't have.
Growing up, I always knew that I was adopted, but of course, the older I got, I was kind of like, oh, what is this? What does that mean? And so I can definitely say that it's affected my life in ways, especially getting older and understanding what that meant. I think it's always made me feel maybe different than a lot of my other friends because I wasn't a biological child from like my parents. I don't look like my parents, for example. You know, my parents have blonde hair and blue eyes, and I obviously don't. I was always kind of a rebel when growing up, and my parents, from what I know, were more good, and I just think our personalities were different, and I think that it kind of made me struggle to see like where I fit in the world.
Yeah, blues, reds, what else? Maybe like pink.
Okay. Making pink. Amazing. Look at your palette compared to mine. This is a well-loved, well-used. I'll start with this one. It feels less scary to start with. All right, let's see what we do.
Take me back to the day when you had Asia.
Yeah, it was a big day. You know, I think I could tell you every detail of that day. But the Coles notes of her birth and the days that followed that I spent with her in the hospital were very powerful. I often get emotional in the recollection of that time because it was life-altering. To become a mother at the age of 15 and yet to not be a mother was new and startling, and I think we were all a little unsure what the future would look like.
Placements take place at the hospital, and nowadays it's within 24 hours because that is how long women who have babies stay in the hospital. So it happens very, very quickly. And they will place the child with the adoptive parents at hospital, and then they all leave separately. That is incredibly emotional. So you have to understand that physically, every ounce of a woman's body is longing to care for that baby that she just gave birth to. Her heart is empty, and she is leaving this hospital with nothing in her arms. And so that is raw emotion. And so she knows that she's made this decision, and she knows that it's for the child. And trust me, only a birth mother can make the decision to place a child out of a place of love, because everything in her is going to say, keep that child.
I spent 3 days in the hospital with Asia after she was born, and in those 3 days I got to be her mom, or as close to it as I ever would be. I changed her diapers, I rocked her to sleep, I filled her ears with all the words of love that I possibly could have. And on her 3rd day of life, her parents joined me in that sacred hospital space, and I did place her into the arms of her mother, and it was a very beautiful moment, and I'll never forget it, because again, still holding on to some doubt or fear that this might not be the outcome that I was dreaming of. I had the vision or the worry that her mom would take the baby and turn and go, and she didn't. She wrapped us both in her arms and held us together and thanked me profoundly for this gift of motherhood and this sacred child, and didn't let go. She just held me. And I feel like in so many small steps along the way together, she has been my hero. Asia's mom, that is, has been my hero in her constant dedication to her commitment to me, that this was not about getting a baby and ditching me. It was about creating a life where this child would be raised with us both as guides and as loving presence for her. I'm just gonna copy you.
I've always felt proud, I think, to have a birth mother and to be able to see her, and been proud to be adopted. Like, even as a child, I can remember in kindergarten for show and tell, my show and tell was sharing how I'm adopted and like how proud I was to have these two families and a birth mother and just so much love around me. Honestly, I don't remember like any exact moment being told I was adopted. I just kind of have always known. I think that as early as I could, my parents taught me about it, and I would learn through like adoption books, through just simply having visits with my birth mom. Like, I never questioned, who is this woman? I always knew who she was and what that relationship was to me. So I think some of the misconceptions, a big one would be that I have resentment or hate towards my birth mother, and it's actually the opposite. Like, I just think she made the most selfless act, and she just gave up everything for me. She put me first before herself, and yeah, she's just like, she loves me unconditionally, and she did this out of love. That's why she did it.
The things that you lose as a birth mom are the day-to-day stuff. It's the loss of not being there for her first steps or her first words. It's not being the person she runs to when she scrapes her knee. But there's honor in the role of birth mother. And so what helped me in my grief was to recognize the ways that I was special and integral to her upbringing, to be the person she could turn to for her story, to give her answers when she had questions, and shared physicality. She looks a lot like me and my family. She's got a lot of our physical traits and personality traits even. And so in that way, I felt that I could be a source of support to her as she grew as well, to know where she came from.
Open adoption is a move from the secrecy of the past. Birth families and adoptive families are now making moral agreement, not a legal agreement, to have relationship. And I equate it to a marriage. It's two families coming together with love and commitment. And this is two families coming together with love and commitment in the interests of a child. And it is a beautiful thing.
See my feet? They got holes still.
My son was like just watching like the inception of the Mighty Pups one, and I like sat down and I was like, what's going on?
I know. You haven't watched it for a bit, and then all of a sudden.
It was like Sunday evening.
It was a Sunday. I remember I even went into work. I was like, I need to tie up some loose ends at work because like this baby could be coming.
I think when I was at work, like an hour or two into my shift, Colleen let me know that Parker was born. So that was a bit of a whirlwind for myself at work, just because I was working at Global Edmonton and I was doing morning hits on air. So I'm just totally distracted and not really sure what I'm talking about on air or what I'm saying. It was weird because you feel like, you probably just became parents. You're a mom and dad now, but you're kind of sitting in the cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think like then Billy was in the hospital for about 3 days after that. And like after the initial kind of like, wow, this is really happening, I think I know for myself for sure, my thoughts were really with Billy and making sure that she was okay, like health-wise, obviously. And then just that she was comfortable and happy.
think it is absolutely one of the hardest decisions a birth mother can make, and it is a courageous decision without a doubt, because it's painful. It's very painful, and you do it out of complete selflessness, believing completely that your love for this child and this child needs something you're just not able to give.
I remember just being nervous for the emotions that could come with this whole with this exchange, you know, like, you know, that this is the most emotional part is when there's, you know, that passing almost, where she just entrusts you with her baby. She was so confident in what she was doing, you know. She was, you know, we tucked him in and she's like, you know, see you later, little guy, I'll come see you soon. And
my biggest fear in the whole thing was that he would forget me and he would forget who I was.
For me, seeing her at the hospital made it that much more real. I mean, we saw her pregnant 8.5 months, so but now it's getting close. Like, and as that time comes, you start questioning yourself. When they hand her that baby at birth, will she still be able to follow through? You know, clear-headed ahead of time, wanting the best thing for the child, but how can she? We felt like we were, once we got Kate, we thought we should just run. You know, it just feels like it's just so powerful seeing this beautiful young lady. Catherine was in a bassinet, I believe, when we came into the room, and you just don't know. You just feel like, are we going to really be able to pull this off? Is this going to go like we've been praying and dreaming about? And because it could all go the other way at any moment. You feel bad that she would give it to you. This is the birth mother. And for many years, I couldn't understand. I know what we got. But what did she get? It broke my heart for years. But then when you hear a birth mother say, you were the blessing, I knew that I'd made the right decision. You just hope you can be everything that they are dreaming for their child.
Kate, at 8 or 9 years old, when she met her birth mom, tell me about that.
We met at West Edmonton Mall. When the two saw each other, I mean, it was shocking for us, because I don't know, it'd been a long time, I think, since we'd seen. We went there to meet. Kate was starting to ask more questions, and we just wanted to, again, be as open as we could with her, fulfill whatever we could on her behalf. And so this was a chance at 10 years old for her to meet her birth mother.
Since I've known that I was adopted, I always had this longing where I wanted to know who my biological parents were, just to see who is this woman, and do I look like her? Do I act like her? Do I get traits from her? And I just wanted to see, the similarities that I have with her. And so my parents helped me get in contact with her. And then we had met her in Edmonton, because that's where I was born, was in Edmonton. I remember waiting in the mall, in West Edmonton Mall, waiting, and I'm 9 or 10 years old, and just looking around which one is she? Which one is she? Trying to point out similar features and stuff. And
they both had long, straight, dark hair. They both were wearing black leather jackets. They couldn't have looked more like mother and daughter if you'd picked any other two people in the mall. It was stunning.
I saw her for the first time, and I was like, whoa, we do look very similar, and we have a lot of similar features.
And I remember them just looking at each other. It was like a little mirror they were looking into. And Kate had asked, because she's never been shy. She said, can she come back to our hotel? And so we said, well, we'll see. We don't know what she has to do because I have a question for her. And so we had dinner, I believe, or had a meal of some kind. And then she did come back to our hotel. And I remember Kate was a little anxious. And Michelle went and sat on the bed. Kate climbed up next to her, sat looking at her, and finally she had her question.
I asked her if she loved me. Sorry.
Do you love me? That was an important one.
And it was hard because I know that she loves me. I know she wouldn't have made that decision if she didn't.
Kate wanted to know. She just couldn't understand this person giving her up. So she needed to know, do you love me? And she said, of course I love you.
I think it's because people look at it as, maybe as a sign of being weak. Like, oh, you can't take care of this child, or you don't want the responsibility of this child. But I think that, having a child and like going through 9 months of pregnancy and then giving that up, like, I think that it's really brave.
And it helped Kate. It didn't answer all of her questions. I think there is a sense of abandonment that some adopted children feel more than others. Our understanding, we know other people that are adopted and never even had the question enter their mind.
Don't be afraid of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful story most of the time. I'm sure there's stories, adoption stories, that are not. They go wrong. But just like any birth family, things go wrong. People need to open up their hearts and minds and look at adoption as a beautiful thing. There's so many families like us, or parents that would love to be parents, and there's so many waiting, and I'm sad for that, because we know that the adoptions in the last few years have decreased so much, and I'm sad. I'm just sad for that. I know what these parents would be feeling.
And birth parents and adoptive parents actually often will come and say, oh, I don't want to confuse the child. I don't want to step on their toes. I don't want to be a nuisance. So everybody in the circle does come with the belief that perhaps a relationship would not be good. But that's just not the case. What we have learned and what they will ultimately experience is that they want to have a relationship with each other. The child wants and should have the information on who do I look like, where do I get these quirks from. And for the birth parent, they do need to know that that child is safe and doing well, because that is why they made an adoption plan.
Do you think it's hard on the child?
Open adoption being hard on the child, again, with their story and information and knowing where they came from and that all these people love them, I think you will find that the adoptee will say, this is just normal. This is just normal.
When I think about open adoption and what a gift it is to me and to the people who live it, I would capture it as just like the embodiment of love, that it takes a commitment on all parts to make it work, an openness, an acknowledgement that we do not own our children. Asia was not mine when she was born, and she is not theirs now that she's been placed in their arms. She belongs to the world, and I believe all children do. And so with that, acknowledgement that we don't own children, they're not our possessions, I think when we can embrace that, we live open adoption with authenticity and courage.
When Parker was in the hospital with Billy, it almost like when we were visiting them, this is gonna sound a little weird, but kind of felt like we were visiting a friend, and the reality of it didn't hit me yet until that moment when we went into the room and Billy was waiting there with Parker, and we put Parker in the car seat, kind of went our separate ways, if you will. Everything just kind of hit me like this was really happening. From that point until like the next few days, I just felt like a lot of guilt. I remember when we brought Parker home, I just was like overwhelmed with the feeling of guilt. Just felt sorry and felt bad for Billy. Like I kind of had this feeling of we were taking a child away in a way, which was I didn't expect that, and I hadn't really been feeling that way until that moment. Really, from the time we were leaving the hospital, driving home, it was a bit of a struggle for the first few days. Just, I don't know, it was just weird. I just felt like I almost, in a weird way, wanted for the first couple of days Billy to like change her mind. I was almost thinking like if she changed her mind, I would be okay with it.
I had one adoptive family say we felt like we were stealing a child. We felt like it was too much for her to bear because they're empathetic with this birth mom. I would say to that one, you are exactly the right person, because you are open to that. You're open to the pain, and you're open to this birth mom, and you are open to your own pain and grief journey because of that.
I thought she was such a great person, and I just wanted her to do what was best for her. It did start making it a lot easier because over the next little bit, like Billy was coming over to our house quite regularly. Like I think probably over the first 2 weeks, every 2-3 days she was coming by with Liz. So that made it actually a lot easier for me. I felt like it helped me as much as anybody, I think, just to see Billy, because we got to we had an opportunity to get to know her, and then the more we spent time together, the more I was like, okay, this is really good for everybody and this is gonna work.
My biggest fear in the whole thing was that he would forget me and he would forget who I was. But every time I go see him, it just like reiterates that that's not the case and he remembers me. And it's partly because Slav and Colleen make such an effort to keep me involved in his life, and it's the most amazing thing, because you don't know, right? As a birth mother, you're you're just trusting. So yeah, there was lots of fears.
What is your hope for him?
I hope he can do whatever he wants to do with no nothing holding him back, no financially, nothing holding him back, and emotionally, and he has all the support in the world and so much love. That's my hope, yeah.
So this letter was written to me by Krista, Asia's mom, in preparation and anticipation of this exciting documentary experience. We were going back and forth around what to prepare for in terms of art supplies and whatnot, and just very spontaneously, Krista included these really, I think, tremendous words of love that capture her perspective of open adoption. She shares, I think that there are so many negative preconceptions about adoption that stemmed from the old system. With open adoption, I believe you need 4 things. Love. Unconditional love for the child, the birth mom, her family, and the adoptive family. Yes, it may be hard to think of loving someone you hardly know, but you have got to go into adoption with an open heart. There are many different kinds of love, but without it, you cannot have the following: truth. We all want to know our story, the good and the bad. It is our roots. You cannot be afraid to tell the child the truth. She was a gift to this world. She is not a possession. Trust. To trust each other implicitly, knowing that we only want the best for the child. I trust you with her life and hope that you trust me the same. Sometimes she will tell you things that she wouldn't tell me. I trust you to advise her as any mother would. Faith. Unwavering faith that we can depend on each other to guide and nurture this soul that has been put into our care. We became a team when you passed that precious baby into my arms. Sorry. While I may have done the day-to-day parenting, I had faith that you would stay in her life to help me guide her on her journey. We made a promise that I knew from the moment I met you that you would keep. I vowed to keep mine as well. We have been faithful to each other. You and I are joined for life because we share the gift of a child. I guess when Asia stood up in kindergarten and said she had 2 moms, I was just so proud of her. At 5 years old, she was already telling her story, her truth. I am a child who is loved by many. I trust them to take care of me. I have faith that they will be there for me. I am Asia Cheyenne Joy. That's it.
The stories of adoption should no longer be kept in the back room. Bravery can never be hidden when lives are shared. Adoption is many things, but in the end, it is the story of those who say with a promise, "You are loved. I'll see you later."
Sun on the snow, drip over the door, the light comes streaming through. It's a dream having you. The dream seems to fade as the water's dripping through the broken bitter roof. I gave all I had to you. Can't share your love, can't make it last. There's more than's held in a photograph. Wherever you may roam, I pray your road leads home. Wherever you might wander, I pray your heart grows fonder. As the wave crest breaks and the autumn leaves fall, as the summer sun fades and gives away the fall, it gives away. I held you, small and close, oh, your tiny eyes were closed. A drop hits your nose, it broke and caught the light. A peaceful summer sight, it took my heart away. It took my heart that day. Never thought I'd find